Welcome to Good Morning Thailand. Two very good guests today and so much to talk about, especially about tomorrow's meeting and the fate of the Thailand Pass. Also, the same-sex marriage bill has gone through the lower house in Parliament. There's so much happening we can hardly keep up with it. We'll look forward to speaking to you about it very soon.
Could you please take a moment to click the like and subscribe button? It helps us way more than you know.
Good morning. Welcome to Thursday's Good Morning Thailand, and it's a great pleasure to introduce our guests for today. I'll hardly get a word in. We've got Jett Gunther.
Thank you.
Who has told me he is a space pirate. Could you please explain?
Well, you wanted a title, and I'm not really into titles, so I just went with what I want to be when I grow up.
A space pirate.
Yeah.
Okay. But a man who's much more... Go on.
Stealing space.
Right.
Stole this space right here.
You certainly have. And sitting next to him, in quite the gaudy shirt, Ben Hart from Integrity Legal. Thank you, Ben.
How you doing, Tim? Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you.
I finally wore a festive shirt, and you decided to go straight-laced on me, so,
I've got a selection just around the back there, so I thought, well, I can't go
too much. Too much. You don't want to go too loud.
Plain old space pirate in the middle.
Right. You need to blend in. You don't want to... show off your exploits.
So we do have a lot to get through today, so let's get started because there's a very big meeting tomorrow with the CCSA. That's the sort of COVID task force here in Thailand, which I would probably suggest don't have many more months to go.
One would presume, yeah.
One would presume. Yeah. So let's get stuck into it and have a talk about what they may be discussing tomorrow. And there's a few things. There's masks, Thailand Pass, temperature checks, and closing times at the nightlife venue. So let's start with the Thailand Pass. I'll cross over to you, Ben, because you did an editorial on your program the other day on your Integrity Legal channel, and talking about the Thailand Pass. In 1 minute, what was that about?
Basically, I mean, in the editorial side of it, obviously, I think if you watch my channel at all, you'd know that I really want to see Thailand Pass end. I think it would be much better for the tourism sector if we can put that behind us. But more and more, they've been talking about it. I think they're probably going to do it. Now, I've been burned a lot in the past. I mean, I thought travel bubbles were going to happen 2 years ago, but I do think we're probably going to see the Thailand Pass put behind us sooner rather than later. Precisely when remains to be seen, but the sooner the better, I think, especially for the tourism sector in Thailand.
Did we ever actually see a travel bubble?
Nope.
Even
it never
one?
actually happened. It never actually happened. They talked about it for over 2 years and it never actually happened.
Never happened.
Right.
So, okay, the Thailand Pass is one thing. Now, I'm going to infuse this with another thing that we were talking about earlier in the week, and that was getting rid of the TM6, which you guys probably don't have to worry about these because you're both Thai citizens.
Right.
So me as a foreigner, and all foreigners, tourists coming here, we have to fill out those silly blue and white forms on the plane. So they're talking about at least suspending the use of the TM6. You think that's going to go a bit longer than just a suspension. But the problem is, if they get rid of the Thailand Pass and the TM6, how are they going to know anybody's here?
Well,
they'll know.
Yeah. Biometrics.
They've
really
got
biometric scanning. Yeah. To clarify too, Thais used to have the equivalent of a TM6 when they were outbound, and they'd have to come back in with it in their passport and present it when they were inbound. But I think that went away like 10, 12...
2017.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Shorter than even I thought. But biometric scanning, I think, will replace all of this.
Yeah, of course. I mean, if a dinky little piece of paper was all the government relied on to know where you are, I mean, I think this is pretty...
So we've actually got a photo which we found of where they put all those TM6 forms. So, Chai, would you like to show that photo? So there you go.
I've been there.
That's where they keep...
Shocking.
All the other TM6 forms. That's a frame out of
I went to go find mine.
Yeah.
So, where's the GU? But apparently, that's a frame out of the movie, The Raiders of the Lost Ark. But Ben, you said that there's actually a place they do put them.
Yeah, no, they keep them. There are whole sections under Immigration Division 1 here in Bangkok. I don't know what they do out in the provinces, but here in Bangkok, there are storage areas. If you go, anybody that's ever been to Immigration Division 1, Chiang Wat Na, it's huge. The building in which it sits is huge. Well, there's storage in that building that's just as big.
It is an
ground.
enormous,
yeah. It's a
quite
huge
futuristic
facility.
building.
It's a huge facility, and yeah, they do literally keep, especially for visa extensions, they keep the case file. So when I naturalized to Thai citizenship, I actually saw my case file. It was about this big, and they keep those. It's down there. They have to pull them out. It's the reason you can't extend your visa prior to a month before it expires, because they do it by the month. So they literally pull them out, each month's worth of extensions, they pull them out, and then they suss it out as to who needs their filings brought up to date. So yeah, there are huge facilities to store these paper documents.
So assumedly now, if they get rid of the TM6 and the Thailand Pass, they're going to have to keep all this information digitally in the future.
Sure. Yeah, one would presume.
Yeah.
So I told you, we won't have to say anything today. Yeah, say over to Ben.
Sorry, excuse me.
So the next one is...
Because I was going to say, like, is that a good thing to know that the government here still relies on paper? I mean, is that good from the perspective of a anti-government surveillance kind of thing? If things were digital, it would be even more closer to dystopia.
It's easier for them to keep an eye on you digitally and know what you're going to do if they've got all that data in one place.
Like the fact that I see that they're that archaic is a little bit more reassuring.
I mean, but for us Thais, they've got all of our information anyway. That's what our Thai ID card is. It's all just packed into that one document.
But then they want you to do a photocopy and sign it anyway.
Oh,
it's
sure.
like, dude, there's a chip that you can just come on, man.
They're just
not all synced up. And
it's not quite connected.
That could be a good thing that I'm saying here in terms of like if you don't like the government surveilling you all the time. It's a good thing that they're a little bit dysfunctional like that.
Paper's a lot harder to trade, a lot harder to find. Like, look, when I file my tax returns in the United States, I always file a paper filing. I know people think I'm a dinosaur. Well, if they want to have a look at my stuff, they got to go find the paper document and look through it themselves.
That's a good legal tip, actually.
So we've just haven't really got into our first topic, and we've run out of time.
Well, we're late, by the way. We started at 10:03.
1 minute late. You can blame
disappointment of the
Chai and Norm
section.
for that.
So we got extended.
So as well, we should introduce Carmel. Carmel, welcome to the program again.
Hello.
The voice of God, and sitting next to her is the prophet, Chai, who's looking after the buttons today. And Norm, as usual,
You have
lurking
the hair
around.
of a prophet.
Yeah, what is going on with his hair today? You're the hair expert.
Static
I like
electricity.
it. I mean, I'm kind of the same. I like the style, man.
Masks.
Hand to the.
Okay, moving on. Masks. So masks is the next thing they're going to be talking about.
Yes.
So now, Ben, you've got another strong opinion on
Yeah,
this. You
I
say
do.
that there is no such thing in Thailand as a mask mandate.
I don't buy it. I've stated this pretty categorically, especially here recently. By the way, the public health minister, Kun Anutin Chawirakun, has said there's no laws codified on this matter. I know people sit around, and especially folks out there say, oh, well, there's a mandate because there's the emergency decree. Well, you can't do by decree what has not been codified in law. And that is a central tenet of civil law. And I'm saying this as sort of an outside perspective, coming from I've got a Juris Doctorate more from a common law background, although I have studied comparative law. I just don't see how you can make a rational argument that there is a mask mandate when there is no codified law that says we can have a mask mandate.
So if a friend of mine, another space pirate,
Sure.
were to be in a public space and not wear a mask, and if someone like a cop or whoever walked over and asked them to wear a mask and they said no, could they be taken away? Like,
they might be able to put them under due process and take them to a Thai court, but I think any Thai court would ultimately say, look, this isn't codified.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're, and there's a big difference. I want to be clear on this. I remember you guys reported on this a couple of years back, or maybe a year and a half ago, where this guy was walking into a market and he was purposely not wearing a mask. It was a Farang guy, and he got into some problems about that. Well, that's a little different than just walking along on your own. I want to be clear I'm not talking about somebody who's trying to cause a problem with that. It's more just somebody like just off on their own, and then they get hassled about it.
Because the space pirate in me is curious.
Right.
Now. It's
Sure.
like,
Sure.
I mean,
Because you steal space. And this is all about space.
So
you know.
does this mean this whole time the government is just bluffing? That they're just hoping that everyone is just following
it's
along?
not so much. It's not
but
so
that they actually can't really do anything, and they're just hoping that the jig is not up. But if we just all agree not to wear a mask in public, like no one's.
What I think
anything.
happens with a lot of things is these things snowball. The conventional wisdom snowballs. There's a lot of conventional wisdom out there that is oftentimes not really as rock solid as people want to believe it is.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of one of those where they came out and said, look, we really would like people to wear masks. And look, I've never disagreed with private property. You know, if Siam Paragon says, hey, you got to have a mask to come in here, that's perfectly acceptable.
Right.
But the moment at which they said, you know, especially alone outdoors, which goes against even what the WHO says, but alone outdoors in public space, you have to do this essentially because we say so. Well, okay, that's not good enough. That there has to be codified law in a public space. At least that's my understanding of how the civil law works.
Let's cut through this and say, imagine that tomorrow they may change some aspects to the perceived requirement
Sure.
to wear masks. If they say, okay, you don't have to wear them in public places anymore tomorrow,
I'd be fine with it. At that point, I'm done. I have no issue.
All right, so
Yeah.
if they do that, on Saturday, Jett, are most Thais going to take their mask off?
It remains to be seen whether people are wearing their mask because they're genuinely concerned about contracting the virus, or are they just following orders? I mean,
What do you think?
could
Are
be-
you going to take your mask off in public if everybody around you is still wearing them?
I have been, Tim.
Ooh,
I mean,
you space pirate, you.
like
He's stealing space. That's
Yeah.
that's how it rolls.
I kind of, well, I don't know if I should say this, and I kind of do like a little social experiment where I go into places and not wear a mask and wait until someone tells me to wear a mask.
Have they?
No, I just walk into malls with my face completely, open. I know that's crazy, after 2 years, but no one's ever come up to me and say, hey, wear a mask. I walk in and out of stores and shops and all like that. But anyway, you're asking, will people, I don't know, it could be a gradual, it could be like 50-50 maybe.
I think people really should make their own choice about what they do with their own.
And if they want to wear it, it's fine.
No,
right?
but
just
I
I'm not
think it
this
will be
kinda-
gradual.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it, like you say, I think it will be gradual. People will do it, and over time, and then we'll all forget about it and
sure,
be done.
sure.
So every time, another thing, moving on to the third point that they're probably going to be discussing tomorrow, that they are definitely discussing, is when we walk in through the doorway of just about any shop, there's this sort of knee-jerk reaction as we put our right hand up to get scanned by the temperature check.
Yeah.
It's not, hi fans, no, sorry, it's not that, it's temperature checks.
Right.
So, okay, they get rid of the temperature checks. Again, will we see on Saturday morning every store just getting rid of them?
Sure. I mean, it's a drag on their entire business and bottlenecking. It's like, I'm sure most people would love to be rid of that.
Somebody's made a lot of money selling those
Oh
infrared
man,
machines.
yeah.
Every single shop's got them.
Look, don't let a crisis go to waste.
Sure. I think those temperature checkers will be like, you remember the old Thai the old Thai landline phones?
Yeah.
You used to see them.
They'll just
They're
be
big,
there.
fat. They'll just be sitting there, like in the back, like cobwebs and dust
Yeah.
on them, and everybody will
You
just.
remember, like,
what is that?
There was a time when there was people were scared of terrorism and
Yeah,
all like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
There are all these metal detectors, and you
yeah.
still see them in certain areas.
Yes,
They're just this
yes.
remnants of this era, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was
I
when
forgot
you
about
had to
that,
do that.
yeah.
Yeah. You remember when you go into the MRT that you had to open your bag?
Yeah,
Now it's like,
yeah.
no, as long as you wear a mask now,
Yeah.
like you can
Yeah.
smuggle whatever you want, you pirate.
Yeah.
But
when
as
you
long
walk-
as you wear a mask, you pirate. It's like, I want to wear a mask anyway.
But when you
if I'm
walk
smuggling.
through there, it goes beep, beep, beep because you've got your laptop in your
Yeah.
backpack, and
Yeah.
they
And
they
never
don't
stop
care.
you. No, just
Yeah.
off you go.
No, everyone's gonna beep. You can't just stop every single person. Like, the whole thing was bogus to begin with.
So the fourth thing that they may or may not be discussing, and is, I know, a hot topic for a lot of you, is the closing times for nightlife venues. Now, they increased it on June the 1st officially to midnight, and there's a lot of push to try and move it till at least 2 a.m. Now, we can already sort of suggest that there are many places that's currently open until 2 a.m. So what do you think is going to happen with closing times? Our Thai writers suggest that this may be the one that won't change tomorrow. Your thoughts?
If I was taking bets on it, I would probably put that at the least likely that it'll go through.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that'll. If it's me betting on it, I think they'll go another 2 weeks on that one. That'll happen like in July, but it's inevitable. I mean, it's coming.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do it.
But they have been enforcing it. Like I was.
No,
I was out this past weekend.
Sure.
It's like, woo, Bangkok's alive.
Yeah.
And it's like, no,
Sure.
until midnight, everyone's got to be Cinderella for now.
Yeah. No, you turn into a pumpkin at midnight. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
doubt about that. Yeah.
So, Space Pirate, can I actually ask you, because you have moved recently back from Chiang Mai
Yes.
back to Bangkok to pursue your Space Pirate interests, what have you noticed about Bangkok?
No, I have noticed that the city has like woken up. That's actually why I decided to come back, because there's more stuff going on for me now, like just both work related and like weekend related too. That being said, I was surprised that they were really enforcing the midnight closing time. But before that, people would be starting early, doing stuff earlier,
Right.
and bars and nightlife venues are pretty packed now again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of places seem to be getting back to some sort of new normal. But we should say, in regards to all those things that we've spoken about, the Thailand Pass, the closing times, the temperature checks, and the masks, none of this has actually happened. It will be decided either today or tomorrow. We imagine probably mid-morning tomorrow we might start getting some information out to you. We will get all that latest information out on the Thaiger.com. We are sort of not getting through these topics very quickly today. Carmel, do you have any comments from the comment section?
Yes. This was when you were talking about masks. There are a few. Mandalik S. Rao said, whether it's prescribed or not, I'm bothered about my health and the health of others, and I would definitely continue wearing a mask.
And that's your right to do so.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Yeah.
As long as you don't impose that view on other people, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to force you to take off a mask if you don't force me to wear one. Like it goes both ways.
Well said.
Conversely,
Well said.
is there going to be a bit of no mask shaming, so the people who are really against the mask, are they sort of going to vilify the people
That's wrong.
who are still wearing
No,
masks?
because they have the right to do and wear as they please. That's their right too, just
Yeah.
as much as I believe it's someone's right to say, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Because if you were a true like libertarian, like no free will, whatever, then it is live and let live.
Sure.
Like everyone has
Yeah,
the right to do
absolutely.
what they want to do with
Absolutely.
their bodies.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree
Carmel,
more.
any more?
Yeah. Dating Guru said, Tim, your face expression, you bring on two chatty guys, have coffee, and let them run the show.
Well, pretty much. This is the
Wait a
easiest
minute.
show I've
Can-
ever had.
Can we have Dating Guru on the show tomorrow to guruing on dating?
That would be interesting. I'm sure
He's
that
a frequent
person's hearing
contributor.
it.
I'm not sure why he's called Dating Guru.
Dating
I'd
Guru.
love to know
Does he have
why,
a-
actually. That would
Maybe
be
he has a
good.
program to sell.
good
Maybe
question.
I don't know.
Might be bigging up his own potential there. I'm not sure.
There's one more. True Blue Tie said, I'd never see anyone doing the temperature check. It's only me just because I'm a nice expat.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's pretty much a knee-jerk reaction. You walk
No,
in the
a
door.
A lot of
and
people do it.
Hand goes
I've
up.
seen.
I
yeah.
do. It's literally. I know they're useless, but I
Yeah.
still do it every single time.
Very much depends. I've noticed it very much depends on the venue. So if it's like an outdoor venue, I have seen where people just kind of disregard it, where it's like an outdoor like bar or restaurant or something. But almost any time I've seen people going indoors, yeah, they tend to just by muscle memory do it.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we might have a break because we sort of have been going on a bit long here. By the way, thank you very much to our sponsor, Regents International School in Pattaya. Thank you very much for being part of the Thaiger and Good Morning Thailand. With that, we'll go over to the guy with the frizzy hair. Chai, let's have a quick break and we'll come back with more Good Morning Thailand.
Don't you dare go anywhere.
At Regents International School Pattaya, we are really excited to be introducing the A-level programme alongside the International Baccalaureate Diploma programme. We are offering these two programmes really to prepare students best for university wherever they choose to go in the world.
Okay, welcome back to Good Morning Thailand. Noom, would you be able to get some water for Ben?
Oh,
As
yeah.
we've got handmaidens to
Oh, well,
do all
cheers.
this for you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
So we're going to have a quick talk about Inflation Watch, because I have been asking all our guests all week what they have noticed in the way of rising prices. I loved the answer of Jett this morning in our production meeting, but I will let you say what you want.
What are you going to reveal?
I'm not going to reveal anything. What's said in the production meetings stays in the production meetings. I have read this morning that the price of LPG, which is used by a lot of Thais for cooking, even the street vendors out there, they've got the little cooking cylinder, the gas cylinder. We use gas at home, got the gas cylinder. Curiously inside, which you're not allowed to do in Western countries. But so, Jett, what have you noticed or not noticed in regards to inflation?
Well, yeah, I guess I live a kind of simple digitized life, so it took me a while. But I did note, like, one thing that's stuck out, and Ben's probably going to harp on this too, is when I moved down,
he's
the
very good
cost
at harping.
to ship, because I loaded my stuff into a truck and they came down and they charged me more because of gas prices, and then there's courier prices as well. I don't know. Me buying food is kind of relatively the same, but that's one thing I've noticed.
Okay, so you're shipping all your gold bars back down to
My
Bangkok.
gold bars.
Well, yeah.
Very heavy.
Yeah.
Well, you bring up a good point, though. There's been serious inflation in Thai gold. The Thai gold price has gone up substantially over the course of like the past 6-8 months.
Has it though?
This guy is really into gold,
Is it still
really
up over
into gold.
30,000?
as he's checking his phone.
Oh, it's
No,
back.
not really.
It's back
no,
down.
no, that's
That's a photo of you without any clothes on.
Well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of the same, but no, it's been the one thing that has been kind of stable during this time. Everything's crashing down the board.
No,
across the
okay.
board.
Well, I guess it's been up while other things been. Yeah, okay.
It's been the
fair
only
dues.
thing that has remained steady while everything
Okay.
has been taking a nosedive.
As you pointed out, I mean, one thing we've noticed, just what we do at the law firm, is courier prices have gone up. Fees associated with that, because they're just passing along fuel prices and things going up. So
Yeah.
that's a big one. One thing that's worth noting, you brought up food, and not to get too far off on a tangent about this, but in terms of inflation, at least in the United States, I think a lot of what's being called inflation is actually problems in the supply chains, where the supply chains have broken down. One thing Thailand very much has going for it is they're very much on the supply side of many exported goods as well as agricultural products. So, Thailand is totally food independent. So, and that's going to really stand Thailand in good
Gonna
stead moving forward.
protect us.
Yeah, big
So
time.
the LPG price, that's liquid petroleum gas,
Right.
currently 363 baht for a 15 kilogram standard cylinder, going up to 378 next month, and will continue to increase up to 400 baht in August and September. So that is quite a steep rise. And I suppose that's partly connected to fuel prices and
yeah.
all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, Ben, what did you notice has gone up in price?
As I said, courier fees, and then everything, I'm definitely not an economist, or I guess I'm maybe an amateur one insofar as I just kind of am a layman that thinks about economics, but everything's always connected to energy prices at the end of the day.
Yeah, of
So,
course.
anything you've got to move is going to go up in price if the energy price goes up. So how much it goes up, how fast, it's going to kind of depend. One thing I've kind of noticed is the fruit vendors on the street. That's gone up another 5 baht, I've noticed, in about the last 6 weeks. You're just buying some pineapple or something. It's
I paid 25 baht for a bag of pineapple yesterday.
Yeah.
It used to be 20 baht.
I remember when it was 10. I feel like one of these old guys now, where I'm like, yeah, I remember when it was a nickel to do. But yeah, it's going up definitely.
Okay, so that's our inflation watch, and I'm sure you might have some ideas of what you think has gone up in price if you live here in Thailand, or indeed if you live somewhere else in the world, things that have massively gone up. Let's have a talk about, some dynamics in Parliament at the moment, and we're not really talking about the C word, we'll get to that a little bit later, but this is in regards to same-sex marriage. Now, the government, about 2 weeks ago, put forward a draft of a civil partnership bill. And the idea of that was to give same-sex people the similar rights to being married. But it wasn't marriage. Right. But they've sort of been prevaricating over the last 2 years on this one, and it may have been the Pride Week that maybe brought this to the fore, Pride Month.
Yeah.
But yesterday, or the last couple of days, the Move Forward Party, which are the opposition party, one of the opposition parties here in Thailand, said, oh, bugger all that, we're just going to put through the marriage equality bill. So they've sort of jumped over the top of this civil partnership bill, which the government haven't even put to Parliament yet, even though it's been passed through the Cabinet. And the marriage equality bill sailed through the lower house with some support from Palang Prachara MPs.
Yeah, conservatives.
Conservatives. So this is a little bit of a mess where you've got the government who are going to be putting through the civil partnership bill, the opposition who have proposed an alternative, basically saying, well, we're not going to go through the civil partnership thing, we're going to go straight to marriage. This is going to cause, well, I don't know how the dynamics are going to wash out with MP votes and how this is going to go through the upper house at some stage. But the marriage equality bill and the civil partnership bill, two totally different things, Ben.
Yeah, two different things. Again, civil partnership, if that ultimately passes, just in, like, for example, a U.S. immigration context, civil partnership doesn't get you to the point for, like, U.S. immigration that you can get a U.S. marriage visa for your same-sex spouse. So it is a qualitatively different thing. Interestingly, on the sort of the political front, if people recall, going back a few years now, the NLA, the National Legislative Assembly, which was sort of the predecessor of the present Parliament, far more conservative than the present Parliament, they even tabled same-sex legislation at the time, but because they were closing down that session, they just never got around to it.
Then COVID happened.
And then COVID and all this stuff happened.
Yeah.
But I was really not surprised that there was conservative support for either of these bills, because there was a conservative push for it even back then. So I really think that there is a pretty strong contingent of folks in Thailand that have basically said, look, this is just something that we just need to put this one behind us. Let's just get something done on this and move on. That's kind of the feel I get of it.
But if it's passed, like what would change? Because my question, and I asked Tim this,
Sure.
so I'll ask you this, is this all symbolic anyway? Because if you wanted to symbolically be married, you can do that anyway.
Sure.
At a
Many
church
people
or
do,
whatever.
and many people do.
And if you're concerned about the legal aspect of it, then you can have a will. You can designate a adjudicator. So is anything going to change? Because this is symbolic. You can do whatever you want to do anyway right now with all these other avenues, right?
Fair point, but I would say that for a same-sex couple here, no, this is far more than symbolism. Well, civil partnership will get you there, but especially with marriage, I have a lot of same-sex couples as clients. They have to go to far greater lengths to secure things like estate rights on the estate of one or the other partners in that relationship. Whereas if you've got civil partnership or marriage, the presumption will be that that's your heir. So that's just one aspect of this. But other things like state benefits, if that were to come up, if you have a civil partner that's or a spouse, same sex, that's perhaps in the Thai government, or you need to use Thai documentation to prove something up with your home government if you're an expat for your same-sex spouse. No, it's more than symbolism. This has substantial ramifications for same-sex couples in Thailand. The estate front, the immigration front, benefits front. It's a pretty big deal.
Right, so it's going to be interesting to see how this does. There's now 3 or 4 sort of bills or amendments to the marriage bill that went through Parliament the last couple of days. The Prime Minister is sort of livid about it, apparently, because it all sort of happened without his moniker and his stamp of approval. And it's really put the lower house Parliament in a sort of a difficult position where they're going to have all these different bills. It's now going to go to review. Mm-hmm. Now, this review, I'm not exactly sure how that's meant to work in the lower house, but it looks like it will.
If it's similar, analogous, again, never apples to apples, but in the U.S. system, when you get 2 different bills, and one in the Senate, one in the House, they usually have what's called a conference committee, where they get together and they just consolidate it all into one bill, and they all kind of get together and decide, okay, this is what we want the final thing to look like. I suspect this review will be very similar to that kind of proceeding, where they just bring them all together, consolidate it into one thing, and then whatever comes out at the end will sort of be what we're going to get.
Interestingly, Thailand, to a lot of people, is seen as sort of progressive and dynamic, and especially when it comes to issues of sexuality and things that seem to be very open. But the reality is that it's quite a deeply conservative society.
Generationally.
Generationally?
I think it's a generation thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. Thailand is very conservative, and it's simultaneously arguably the most tolerant country I've ever seen. So while they have their own beliefs about their own lives and their own families and things like that, they are very tolerant. The Thais, I guess I'm Thai, I mean, Thais are very tolerant of the way people want to live their lives, live and let live.
Well, so we've got a few interesting months to see how this is all going to wash out. Then, of course, it'll have to go to the upper house, which handpick senators from basically the Prime Minister's mates. And
but again, the NLA, they had a bill similar to this, and it was looking pretty good. So it's not outside the realm of possibility that even the conservative Senate says, "Yeah, we need to do something here." You know?
Let's see what happens. Do you want another break now, or can we do another topic, Chai? Up to you. We can do another topic. While we're at it, before we get into the next topic, Carmel, any comments about the last topics?
Yeah, the civil partnership bill. Quentin Stroud, celebrity psychic, said it is a lot harder and more expensive for same-sex couples. And Wigglert asked, why long for the government to get involved in your relationship? Wake up, knuckleheads.
There's that perspective. I've heard it many times. You know, why does the state need to be involved in the relations between two private parties? There's something to be said for it.
Well, a lot of religions in the world seem to be obsessed with what people do in the bedroom.
Well,
less so in regards to Buddhism. I'll now cross over to our resident Buddhist expert.
Right.
Is there much in the Dharma about sexuality? Do Buddhists care as much as some of the other religions?
I think if you really wanted to really read into it, then yeah, because they don't mention same sex as a thing. They keep on referring marriage relationships between a man or a woman. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I don't think there's anywhere that they explicitly said that same-sex relationships are sinful and a crime or anything.
Yeah, Buddhism's sort of not like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we now move on to our next topic, and this is another aspect of the C word controversy. Now, for those people, I'm not being cute when I'm saying C word, or what did we call it yesterday? Greens?
Yes, we called it greens. It was a lot easier to think about it because it's...
You know what we're talking about.
Greens.
It's just we get demonetized by Mr. YouTube when we mention these words. I can swear and do a whole lot of other things and talk about quite gruesome topics, but I can't speak about this topic, which is ludicrous. But that aside, we are using their platform, so we'll behave ourselves, won't we, gentlemen?
Sure. I prefer specific agricultural products. That's my catchphrase.
The legal definition.
Yeah. Specific agricultural products.
What a lawyer. So this is just a different perspective to it, and it's students, teachers and the board of a technological college in Songkhla had a protest yesterday condemning the government's decision to decriminalise the C word.
Specific agricultural products.
Specific agricultural SAP.
SAP. I like that. SAP. S-A-P. All in cap. Yeah, SAP.
Nudge, wink, wink.
Right.
So the college yesterday was calling upon MPs, especially Muslim MPs and relevant agencies who supported the bill to decriminalise SAP on June the 9th to reconsider their decision and think about the future effects the drug will have on Thai people. So all I can say is that, oh, there's a big bit of thunder.
Wow.
Got a few storms
Someone
passing
didn't
over.
approve of what you just said.
Yes, I'm sorry.
We're just talking about SAP.
We're talking about same-sex marriage. They're just catching up.
Yeah.
So they're in delay. So the issue is that between what's happened on June the 9th last week in regards to decriminalisation, certain things have happened. We'll talk about this in a moment. And there is still some laws that need to be passed in Parliament about how to describe this new law, and that hasn't been passed yet. I would say that they've botched the whole thing because they should have had it all their ducks in a row, because there's a lot of confusion about what people can and can't do with the SAP at the moment. I've always said, and I'll say again, that people will still smoke or not smoke this product regardless of what the law is. So how do you sort of see this passage of these laws and the decriminalisation ban?
Well, what I would say is I don't think that this is actually a bad thing. The authority, when this happens, when you watch the evolution of this, and we've sort of seen it ongoing in the United States. Canada is a really good example. They've kind of come to the end point with this. But when you decriminalize something, there is going to be a moment of sort of vacuum where the system doesn't quite know what to do, and you
But
get
shouldn't they have that in place before
yeah,
they
but you
decriminalise
can't.
it?
In a lot of ways, you got to remember the law looks backward. It's very bad at looking forward. In fact, you don't really want laws that look forward, because that would mean trying to predict behavior and things like that. And honestly, that's kind of what communism was all about. I don't really like laws that are trying to predict what people will do and then regulate it. Instead, okay, yeah, we're going to have this moment of vacuum, but we are seeing the good sides and the bad sides, and we can promulgate a regulatory structure that says, look, we're going to try to get rid of all the worst of this while keeping what we want, mostly tax revenue generation, I'm sure, on the government's part. And so we got to find a balance in that sort of regulatory structure. That's how I think this will play out.
So do you think this is just a natural step in the
Yes,
process?
I do.
Like it's
I do.
like
Yeah.
it's just
It's messy. There's no doubt, and you're right. It's messy, but it is just sort of the way these things go. Because when you've had something that's been wholly illegal for a long period of time, especially something that grows everywhere, you're going to have a moment of sort of disconnect between the old system and the new system, where you're trying to sort of suss out what's the positive, what's the negative, and how do we regulate so that we can accentuate the positive and try to mitigate or eliminate the negative.
Sounds like a song.
Yeah, I think it is, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
So, okay, can you smoke sap recreationally at the moment?
My understanding is if it has a certain level of, let's say it's a 3-letter acronym.
THC, I think we can say that.
Okay. If it has a certain level or more of THC, then no, that remains illegal. But as has been said, as has been stated out there, the Thai police have said, look, we are not looking to go, and this is the real key to decriminalization, is we are not looking to go to private people's homes who are alone and bother them about what they are doing at home alone in their house. And that, to me, was a key quote. I think I saw it somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, but it was quoted directly as saying that. And I think that's key. That's the key point of this decriminalization is, look, what you do in the privacy of your own home, we're not really concerned about that. Now, if you're running around out there throwing sap everywhere and, whatever, you're going to have a problem.
sappy guy.
Yeah.
So, Jett, you've probably got more younger friends than Ben and I. What's the current vibe in the young folk of Thailand?
I mean, I think
this
it's what
one?
you just said. Like, they're doing it anyway, and any of this is just like, okay, like,
Window dressing?
It's kind of cosmetic. Yeah.
Yeah, really. Yeah, like it hasn't changed my behavior, which is very rarely, but my friends that do it very frequently, I don't know, they're just doing it the same amount. And I guess the only thing that's kind of cropped up is people are talking about, oh, maybe I should get into the sap business and launch some cool products and copy what they're doing in California. So in terms of consuming it, it's pretty much the same, but what has shifted is maybe these ideas, these entrepreneurial ideas of maybe getting into the industry, getting ahead of it.
I had some sap-infused ice cream a couple of weeks ago at an exhibition which was about all these new products.
Gimmicky.
Apart from costing twice as much as normal ice cream,
More tax revenue.
it
More tax
tasted
revenue.
like
Sap,
ice cream.
Yeah.
sap ice cream?
I didn't taste any of the...
Like
the
if you go into 7-Eleven, there's like the tea that's supposedly infused.
oh no.
Oh my goodness! It's like
Yeah, come in, spinner.
you get the bad taste of the sap and then none of the benefits. It's
Right.
like and then it's even more expensive.
So SAP is specialized agricultural products.
Yeah.
One other point I would make about this decriminalization of SAP is, and I don't think this could be stated heavily enough, is it will free up law enforcement to go after hard substances that kill people. Whereas they once had to dedicate resources to going after SAP.
Yeah.
They can now take all those resources and go after things that actually really hurt and kill people. And quite frankly, that more than anything, from my perspective, is the biggest benefit out of all of this. If nothing else comes from decriminalizing this, if one less kid dies from an overdose on something else, we're all doing better because of that.
Crystal meth, heroin.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I can say those words apparently, but I can't say the other one.
Okay.
All right, so we will take a break at this stage. Or, Carmel, have you got any quick ones before we go to a break? There's probably a lot of people on this one.
I mean, I can always say all of them after, but then do you want me to say a few now?
Yeah,
Sure.
say a few now.
Sure. Okay. JS asked, is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
If you don't use it, is this in relation to the special
Isn't that an
agricultural-
Eddie Money song?
It's in relation to SAP. SAP.
If you don't use it,
If you don't
lose
use it, you lose
You
it.
lose your tolerance. You get
I don't know. I
Effed
don't
up.
understand.
I didn't get that one.
This is
Yeah.
from Jay.
I don't understand. Jay.
I don't get it either. But
Hi, Jay. You should be out working. Stop watching this. I don't understand the question, Jay, so we'll move on.
Wigglert said that I will only smoke SAP if Ben sells it to me.
Yeah, no, we're not in the. I'm in the legal service business. I'm not in the SAP business. Sorry.
Space pirate business, does that include cultivation of special agricultural products?
link in the video description.
Yeah, there we go. All right, and one more, and then we'll have a quick break.
Rusty Graves said that most things that are illegal are fun.
Yes, my mother said everything I like is illegal, immoral, or fattening. That's pretty true. And with that, we've got Jett here, we've got Ben here. We're not getting much of a word in, Jett, but we'll do our best after the break. We've got Carmel, we've got Chai sitting there pressing buttons with his funny hair, and this is Good Morning Thailand. Good Morning Thailand gets up to 80,000 viewers per week, and we'd like to weaponise our audience for you.
That's right. So if you have a business or property or even your house that you'd like to sell,
Private yacht?
yeah, we could be in space.
I'm not sure about space.
Well, all you have to do is contact us on info@thethaiger.com, and you can hire us up to a day or even a week, and we'll go to your property and do the show live.
Good Morning Thailand, coming your way. And welcome back to Good Morning Thailand with Jett Gunther, Ben Hart from Integrity Legal, Jet-Space Cowboy, Space Cadet,
Space pirate.
Space Pirate, I'm sorry.
Space pirate. Arr.
So our final topic today comes out of the island of Phuket, where the Vice Governor has announced a 5-year goal to reduce road deaths on the island. So I think we can map this pretty much across Thailand, where there's been a pretty high road death toll over a long time. And they're saying that they're going to reduce them by at least half over the next 5 years. And they've talked about things like clearer traffic markings, more traffic warning signs, and education campaigns. But when you look at the statistics, the people who are wiping themselves off in vast numbers are under 25-year-old males, 18 to 25, who ride motorbikes and get wasted, mostly on alcohol, before they head out on their motorbikes.
I'd kind of like to see the death rate of under 25-year-old males who ride motorbikes and get wasted just generally, not on roads even, just in their whole lives. I'd kind of be curious to see what the death rate of those guys is just in a general context.
Yeah. So, but you think that the road death, the way we measure the road death, we sort of are always comparing ourselves to some of the Western countries that have moved ahead quite quickly on this, but you say we're perhaps setting a very high bar.
I would love to know the data for Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, Vietnam, even Malaysia for that matter, although I suspect you probably find the data in Malaysia more easily. But, Thailand's always kind of gets this reputation with these road deaths. And I wonder sometimes if it would really be considered that big well, it is a big deal. Road deaths of the magnitude we're talking about it's a concern always. But I would love to compare it to Cambodia, Laos per capita, just to kind of see, well, are these percentages really that far off the charts for this region of the world? I'd be curious to know that.
Well, it's interesting when we do look at the statistics. It's so much concentration on that one demographic, and if you take them out of the picture, the road deaths here in Thailand are much the same as a lot of other parts of the world. So, Jett, how the Phuket governor said it's all about clearer traffic markings and traffic warning signs. I don't think the 18 to 25 males wasted on their motorbikes care too much about those things.
I think it's environmental, like cultural. I think, like, if I look back to when I was going out with friends and all like that, you know, just coming with your motorbike, drinking and going home with it is the norm. So I think the most important influence on you is your peers. It's just no matter what you do, if you and your peers are still doing that as the norm and not telling each other, like, hey man, like, you know, why don't you call a grab or whatever? Like, that's the most important thing, is your environment among your peer group. I mean, I've been I usually am very concerned about drinking and driving. So I would tell my friends, like, dude, so what, you drove here, so you're not gonna drink, right? Like, or I look out for them. So it you know, education campaigns, sure, that probably plays in, but it is this sort of awareness in general.
So how do you change that amongst that group? How do you get to them and say, no, this is not a good thing, you need to stop drinking and driving?
It's not easy. I think it does, you really need to chip away at it, and it does take time. It doesn't just immediately stop. It is a mindset thing. I think in the West, it's been ingrained already that you shouldn't drink while you drive. You see it in the culture and all like that of having a designated driver. And, you know, you see it in movies and all like that. So I think it does take time and I think most people here, they're not really thinking more long term about this.
I know when they have Friday night drinks here at Thaiger, and I offer to the staff, you know, I'll drive you home, or probably think I'm weird, or I'll pay for a cab. They think, well, why?
I'm good.
I'm fine.
Yeah. I do this all the time.
Sure. So it's a very hard behaviour to change, Ben.
Well, I mean, the libertarian in me has a heck of a time saying this, but you don't have a right to put other people's lives in danger. So what I would say, what I have seen work, you know, Mothers Against Drunk Driving 30 years ago, 40 years ago in the United States, I think really promoted a couple of things, which one was stiff penalties for drunk driving. You get caught doing it, you know, in the States, well, one, you're doing a night in jail if it's your first time. If you become like a habitual offender and that kind of thing, whether or not you hurt anyone, if you hurt people, that could be, if you kill someone, it's criminally negligent homicide, you're doing time, you know. And even in the States, if you're a habitual offender for DUI, driving under the influence, I can tell you the state I'm from, yeah, if you do that more than about once, you're going to be spending some time in front of a judge and in a cell somewhere for a little while. Once you have those kind of penalties, and then you make it very widely known that those penalties exist, I think behavior starts to change, and starts to change pretty fundamentally. Now, it takes some time, but I really do not like advocating criminal penalties for behavior, but behavior that can kill other people, well, you know, sorry, you don't have the right to do that.
I will say that people in Bangkok, they do respond to the knowledge that there are police checkpoints set up. Like, people
time.
Really are aware of that. Yeah. Like, so yeah, maybe more enforcement and more checkpoints would help.
Might help. And I mean, a lot of these deaths, I mean, we're talking about Phuket here. It's happening out in provinces where, you know, you're not going to put a checkpoint out on some road that hardly anybody uses. But if people know, you know, oftentimes criminal penalties are used in order to sort of forestall behavior. So if people know that, like, look, if I get caught out on this road, you know, if I ran into somebody or ran into a tree and they found out I was drunk and I'm going to do 90 days in jail for that, they might think twice about driving that motorbike home. They might just get a grab and go on home. You know?
It took a good 30 years in Australia to change the behavior, with a lot of pretty gruesome advertisements that we were bombarded with in primetime TV. But now, if you drink and drive in Australia, you're sort of seen as a bit of a pariah.
Well, you should be.
That's very different from, say, 30 or 40 years ago.
Well, it needs to be corrected. Yeah.
All right, now passing over the program to you and Carmel. Let's address some of the comments and see what people have had to say on Good Morning Thailand today.
Yes, we can start with the traffic safety. Michael Proudfoot said it's never going to happen until the police get out on the road and do their job.
That's fair.
Speed checks,
Checkpoints,
random breath tests.
harsh penalties.
But aren't there some corrupted that ask for?
What are you saying? Thai police are
yes.
corrupt? Is that what you're saying?
I'm gonna move
The
on.
voice of God
Oh no.
sees it all.
In Australia,
Omnipotent.
they're called booze buses. These things they put up on the side of the road, and they stop you, and you have to go inside the bus and do a random breath test.
Oh.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that can get into some personal rights issues as far as privacy, but at the end of the day, I don't have a lot of time for when people put other people's lives in jeopardy.
Carmel.
Brad Rothberg said there are a lot of holidays in Thailand, so more drunk driving.
Well, yes, certainly when there is a public holiday, the night before the public holiday usually is
It's pretty
a
wild
popular
night. Pretty wild night. Yeah.
Ban holidays.
Yeah.
Work
No.
every day.
Yeah.
Everybody's-
No, that would be sad.
So Jett says everybody should be a space cadet. What space? Space pirate.
Pirate.
Just whatever. Yeah, it doesn't
And-
matter. It's just a
and
placeholder.
get
He's a
trashed.
space thief.
Space thief. Yeah.
Carmel.
Richard Evans said some statistics say Thailand has the second highest death rate on the road, and others say it's the 8th. Who
Reported.
should you believe?
Yeah, I've seen figures over the past 10 years. We've been anywhere from number 1 down to number 8 or 9 in the world statistics for road deaths. But as I said, if you have a look into those road deaths, by far the highest amount of people are 18 to 25 males on motorbikes who are either drunk or driving too fast. So it's that demographic, and they're probably one of the hardest demographics to change the behaviour because they're so the peer pressure to drink and drive.
If you
is
might
so,
do
so
90
strong.
days in jail for doing it, though, it might change pretty quick. I can tell you, when I was a kid, I would
And
be
in jail?
Well, I never went to jail, but when I was a kid, that always, when I was in that age group, stateside, and where I'm from, I mean, you had to drive everywhere. There wasn't, you couldn't walk. It's not like Bangkok where you could walk everywhere. It had a real impact on me. I was always afraid of the penalties of it. That's why I never did it, frankly.
Carmel.
2 more comments on this topic. Chiang Mike said the don't drink and drive message has taken decades to break through in the US. It was worth the effort and time though. And then Tony the Tiger 86 said Thai news always shows gruesome footage of motor accidents via other countries and they still do not care.
Now that's a very good point, Jett. We often have to blur out some of these pictures of road deaths because in Thai media they're quite happy to show sprawling bodies and splattered brains, but in the West that's considered an absolute no-no. So even though they get those gruesome images on social media and on their TVs, it still hasn't changed the behaviour. What
takes
does
time.
it take?
It does
It
take
takes
time.
time.
Oh, it will
Yeah.
take time, and people got to be serious about it. You got to have the will. Like I said, you've got to have the will to say, look, if you if you engage in that behavior, we're going to put you in jail. And then at the point at which you have the will of that, then you have to advertise it and say, look, you're going to go to jail if you do that. Even, I would even argue maybe even if it just happens one time. If you get caught doing it, hey, you're going to do a night in jail at the least.
Well, that has certainly happened a little bit with the zebra crossings after the very highly publicised the young female ophthalmologist who was hit by a policeman on a Ducati. I suppose there's a whole lot of things there that would
bit of
juice up
background.
the Thai media. But I have noticed that there is a quantum change just just around this area in the way that people are going through zebra crossings at the moment.
Sure.
They really seem to have stopped. Have you noticed, Jett? You walk through zebra crossings from time to time
I guess, yeah. There's some
when you're not
changes.
sort of when you're out of your chauffeur-driven limo.
I didn't want to say that. No, I guess so. Yeah, because I think it's made it very real for a lot of people. I mean, it's sad to say that that's what it took, but that's what it took.
Yeah.
So that was a case where I believe there has been an obvious change to the behaviour, not a complete reversal of the bad behaviour, but just that one incident and the publicity did seem to make a bit of an obvious change to the way that people are walking across zebra crossings. Okay, Auntie Carmel.
Yes, we're moving on to SAP. One comment. Mangosteen said that some states in the US decriminalize the SAP because too many people are locked up in prison for it. But why is Thailand decriminalizing it?
Well, I think the fact they released 3,000
yeah.
prisoners shows that that's part of it. Is
Not only released them, but apparently
Give
they
it back.
they returned their
Their
stash.
Their
Their
old
sap.
sap that's
Yeah.
like
Their
dried
sap
up, and
stash.
how would you know which belonged to who? Right?
Well, no. When you get incarcerated, they take all your stuff and put it in a packet and mark your name on
Including
it.
all
They let you
your
have it back.
All your
Stuff.
sap.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
But you also mentioned, Ben, that part of it was also to redirect efforts to
Oh, I think that's a
harder
big
drugs.
one. I think that's a big
Yeah.
one. The big reason I think behind this is, look, this is just not a priority, in the sense that, quite honestly, it's SAP isn't really killing anybody, whereas, harder drugs, as you said, heroin, methamphetamine, it kills people. It literally kills people. It ruins lives. To quote that film, The Gentleman, where Matthew McConaughey says, but these are the destroyers of worlds. I mean, that's a true statement. When you compare SAP to heroin, I want the police looking for the heroin people, not the SAP people.
Yeah.
Don't say quite so loudly. I mean, YouTube might go, oh, hello.
Right.
Got a drug pusher on there. Okay, Carmel.
I'm going back again to the traffic safety topic because there's a few more comments. Maybe someday soon, a member said that I've noticed that there's an increase of social media shaming or / correcting of those who run zebra crossings.
Yes, so we've posted a few of those videos. People are getting their cameras out at zebra crossings. Social media shaming can be a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
True. Whip out your phone and start recording while you're crossing.
Well,
Sure.
be careful of
Actually-
that under the new Data Protection Act.
Oh,
though.
yes.
You got to watch out for
Darn
that.
it.
Yeah.
They mostly use black box, the black box in the car. Am I saying it right?
Well, there's sort of
You
the
mean that-
in-camera...
The camera.
Somewhat
Recorder.
of a GoPro, poor man's GoPro in the car.
Yeah, in the
that's
car.
on all the
That's
time.
usually what gets released.
Okay.
I see.
And
Well,
one
yeah, whatever
more-
you release, I mean, you can still be prosecuted under these new privacy laws if you're invading somebody's privacy. That's going to keep you busy, Ben, I think,
Well,
over the
we'll
next
see.
few
I mean,
years.
it's going to be interesting to watch how that evolves. But
Yes.
Okay.
Carmel.
Do I give you one more?
One
comment?
more, okay,
Just
that'll
one
do.
final one because we're running on 57 minutes. But the Wu-Tang Life asks, has the Thai stock market taken a dive like the Wall Street has for inflation?
You can just look it up. I'm
I haven't
sure it
been paying
has.
attention.
He's asking you, Jett. Go on, you got your phone with you. So I would say I checked the last couple of days and it wasn't tanking anywhere near the to the same extent as the
Well, the
US
SET,
market.
my understanding, again, just a layman's perspective, the SET isn't nearly as leveraged as the U.S. stock market is.
Correct.
So, I mean, when we've seen these liquidity issues arising in the United States and the Fed is hiking interest rates and things, this is having a tremendous impact on U.S. corporations, especially U.S. corporations who took major loans to do stock buybacks and all of this kind of stuff. These have tremendous ramifications on the U.S. stock market. I would imagine just because the SET doesn't have those issues, it would not have tanked nearly as much as the U.S. markets.
It didn't go up as much either.
Right.
So it's-
No, it
so
didn't.
it's not
It didn't
like,
have the
it's
high. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
it's not like you should have invested in SET, but if you look at the 10-year, 20-year performance, it's underperformed in any way, right?
Right.
So
right.
you
Yeah,
can't
fair dues.
really
Yeah.
compare them, right?
Right.
Any final comments, Carmel?
Yes. When you guys were talking about TM6, Waza Oz as commented that he would be interested as to know how Ben obtained a Thai citizenship.
Oh, through long, hard, just persistence.
Expensive?
It costs. There's a lot of costs that go into it. There's no one thing that costs any particular thing. It's just in the aggregate. It took me 11 years.
11 years.
Yeah, it became a hobby.
Committed or just on and off?
No, it was you
Committed?
Yeah,
Wow.
when I decided to do it, it went from there to like 11 years later.
Jeez.
And it's like a half flex muscle. It was a hobby. I would pull out once a week. I would pull out my binder that had all my stuff in it, and I'd review it, just make sure my visas were still in order, all my work permit stuff was in order all the time. It takes a long time.
Is it easier now, more streamlined?
No, I mean there is nothing about permanent residence or Thai citizenship that you would ever describe as easy.
How long would permanent residency?
About 5 years. You can get that done in about 5-6 years.
Okay, so I've got 4 or 5 years of consistent work permits.
Yeah, we might need to talk. Help you out.
Yeah.
But is there a big advantage in getting permanent residency?
Yeah, big time. I mean, you're done dealing. You're covered under a totally different section of the Immigration Act of '79. You're no longer a non-immigrant. So 90-day reporting gone, visa extension's gone, TM30 gone. All of that stuff is gone, and now you're also in a house book. You're in a blue Tebian bond in Thailand, so you're viewed much differently by the Thai government. If you just stay in Thailand and you're just done leaving, you really don't have to do anything else. You're just done. You're a PR.
Now, in practice, does the elite visa kind of help?
Not really,
No?
because still with elite, you're dealing with 90-day reporting. If you stay in country, you've still got to extend it, even though that the sticker value is 5 years. If you stay, they only stamp you in 1 year intervals. You still have to extend.
I'm going to have to jump in.
Sorry.
We're going to run out of time. I'll have to say goodbye. Thank you to Carmel. Thank you to Chai. Thank you, Ben
Thank you.
Hart from Integrity Legal, if you want to get any further information. And Jett, Gunther, our space pirate, getting all ready for Thailand News Today, which he hosts every day. I'm Tim Newton. You've been watching Good Morning Thailand, and we'll see you tomorrow.